Bob Merrill with you here at Club Colette for the Sunday Legends Brunch. And we are welcoming Bonnie Roseman to the program. Many of you Legends Radio listeners are familiar with Bonnie. She runs those wonderful spots offering to help people clean out their closets and with stylist issues. Now, Bonnie, you've been doing that for 6 years, I'm told.
I am a wardrobe architect, and I'm a stylist and fashion designer. And I've been designing and styling the who's who for many years. And Legend listeners will know me through Bonnie's Buzz About Town. And I tell people what's happening in the culture, in the arts and entertainment and cultural areas of Palm Beach County. And then I also tell them about style.
I've heard Bonnie's Buzz About Town. Isn't it on Thursdays, I think?
It's every Thursday at 9 o'clock in the morning.
I love it.
In the 9 o'clock hour.
I love it. Well, we've gotten to know each other. We met a few years ago, but ever since I've been on the station, we've gotten to hang a few times. You know, you're very modest. You told me about some of the legends that you have styled for and dressed very much ahead of your time. Right now, the stylist is everything with all of these big celebrities, but you were doing it back in the old days, right? Before it became a thing.
That's true.
Some of the names you worked for, Barbara Sinatra, Edie Gourmet, Liza Minnelli, Dinah Shore. Who am I leaving out?
I was very fortunate. My business was always based on word of mouth and referral. It was my dream to meet Frank Sinatra. Through some miraculous intervention from the stars up above, I ended up meeting Bob Hope's personal assistant, and she introduced me to Dolores Hope. She ended up introducing me to some other very interesting people, one of which was Barbara Sinatra. And Barbara just took me under her wing and invited me to her home in Beverly Hills, Malibu, Rancho Mirage. One day I went to visit her was Valentine's Day, and Frank gave me a kiss I'll never forget. And when I had to go excuse myself to go to the powder room, there were paper napkins in the powder room that said "Old Blue Eyes."
Wow.
And needless to say, I still have that framed.
I love it. What was it like to work with Barbara on her wardrobe, for instance? Would she just be clueless, or she knew what you wanted and then you tried to direct her in that way?
It was amazing because she had a closet that was the size of most people's master bedrooms, and she had a lot of clothes, and she loved fashion, and she knew exactly what she liked. But at that time, I was designing very classic 4-ply silk suits that were Armani-ish with hand-bound buttonholes. And she fell in love with a double shawl collar, winter white tuxedo suit with hand-bound buttonholes and a satin collar with a satin shell and a chiffon scarf. Ended up wearing my outfit to the Kennedy Center when Frank was honored, and I was so thrilled.
So this was about 1983, I believe.
1978, I started my company in Beverly Hills, California.
That is a cool story. What about some other folks? Like, we got to know Steve and Edie very well because they came down here years ago, and Steve was recently down here. Edie Gourmet was a lovely person, wasn't she?
Fabulous. She was introduced to me again through this network of people, including Barbara Sinatra, and I did a showing for Edie, and she fell in love and had me meet with her not only in Beverly Hills but in Las Vegas. They had a home there.
Did Steve Lawrence give you a kiss too?
He gave me a hug. She loved purple, and that was her favorite color. And I saw Steve recently backstage after he performed at the Kravis Center, and he remembered these beautiful purple outfits that I made for her. She was particularly at that time loving that I had these full floaty chiffon skirts in this gorgeous deep purple, and then she'd order a 4-ply silk jacket, and she was short, so we had to make it exactly for her height. And she again loved the satin shells and the satin lapels and beautiful scarf, and everything was purple. She just loved that color. It made her feel good, and she felt that it made her sing even better.
Or maybe she was a big fan of Prince. Now, this wasn't stuff that she would perform in. This was kind of a casual.
Yes.
Oh, she would wear it on
Yes,
stage.
she wore my things on stage, and she just looked absolutely stunning. At that point in her life, she really didn't have the perfect figure, and she needed someone to do custom things for her. And I was able to really put together a look for her that was very flattering and made her look more slim on stage. And she just loved me, and she was so kind. And she introduced me to Dinah Shore.
Wow. Was she married to Burt Reynolds at the time?
Well, she was going steady with Burt, and she was so warm, very down to earth, very loving, kind of like having a visit with your aunt. She wouldn't let me bring the clothes to her house unless she made me lunch first. So I would meet with her, usually in Malibu. She would make me a nice lunch. I'm not talking about fancy, but like a homemade chicken salad or tuna salad. And then I would go upstairs with her and show her all my clothes, and we would custom design things for her. She loved celadon green. It just went really beautiful with her skin tone and her hair. And she did introduce me to Burt, and I did have the wonderful opportunity of going to Burt's home. At that time, I was representing a painter from Montana who did beautiful oil paintings of cowboy scenes. He had heard that I had this artist, and I submitted him some pictures at that time. I drove up to his home in Holmby Hills. He lived next door to Barbra Streisand. Came into his home. This was right after he did his full spread on Cosmo. So he was at the height of his career and so handsome. I set up an easel and showed him about 4 or 5 paintings. And one in particular just blew his mind. It was a cowboy riding a horse in the moonlight where there was a cloud just going over the moon, and there was a rainstorm that must have come in, and you could see the rain going off the cowboy's hat in this moonlight. It was a very beautiful painting, and he just flipped, and he bought the painting, and after writing me out the check, which I did make a copy of and frame, he said, "Would you like a tour of my home?" And my mouth just dropped open, and I said, "Of course." And he took me all around his house, and in those years, he was the first person I ever knew. He had rain machines where if you walked into his bedroom, it almost was like you were in the Amazon jungle, and you could hear the birds and you could hear the rain, like being in a rainforest. And he had a bearskin rug on his bed. I mean, it was just what you would imagine Burt to have. I mean, and his bed was unmade, and all I kept on thinking is, no, I'm married and a nice Jewish girl. I'm not going to do anything.
Oh, that is wild.
Yeah, so that was fun. We got a chance to reconnect after he started doing some things with Legends Radio, and he always gave me a big hug and a kiss. He remembered my painting, even if he might have not remembered the day that I came and showed him my artwork.
Well, Bonnie, we're going to take a short break. They're going to bring us some tea. Let's listen to Dinah Shore, along with Frank Sinatra, the perfect song, Tea for Two. Back after this on the all-new Sunday Legends Brunch, brought to you by Schumacher Auto Group and Dixie Vodka. Bob Merrill back with you here on the new Sunday Legends Brunch, and we're chatting with Bonnie Roseman, stylist to the stars. Now, Bonnie, we've been talking about all of your activities out in L.A., dressing the legends. Then you eventually made it to the New York scene. Didn't you say something about meeting Farrah Fawcett and doing something for her?
I used to do showings backstage during matinee Wednesdays for a lot of incredible actresses, including Cheetah Rivera, Rita Moreno, Eliza Minnelli. Farrah Fawcett at the time was doing Extremities, which...
I remember that show. Ooh.
Very intense show where she gets raped, and I mean, she would be like emotionally drained, but just kind of lying on a chaise in her dressing room. She said, "Sure, I want to see your things." She had heard about me, and I brought her beautiful accessories to look at, and she ended up buying really one of my most fabulous pair of earrings that made the cover of Harper's Bazaar and was by an artist from Venezuela that I represented exclusively, and she just flipped out for them.
And this was between the matinee and the evening performance. They had nothing to do. They would just hang. Perfect opportunity for you to come and show off your wares.
I did that for so many people. Phyllis Hyman during Sophisticated Ladies, and I would go backstage, and I met with Melody Griffith. She became a very good client of mine. I used to visit her not only in New York when she ended up doing Chicago, and Antonio Banderas at the time was doing Kiss of the Spider Woman across the street, so we would go over and visit him. But also they had a home in Miami. I actually sold to her when she was married to Don Johnson in Miami, and I saw her in Aspen. So she was a good client of mine over the years, and I got a chance to dress her in clothing and accessories through her 2 marriages and 3 different cities.
So it was the LA years, and then the New York years, and then the Florida years. You finally decided to come down to Palm Beach land.
I had at one point, because of my business and traveling coast to coast, I would spend 4 months a year on the road, and 4 months in LA, 4 months in New York, and then I'd always spend at least a month or so in Palm Beach, and eventually ended up giving up LA and keeping New York and Palm Beach, and then eventually giving up New York and having Palm Beach, and now I live in Nantucket in the summer months. But I have clients in 35 cities.
Well, so you're really tri-coastal.
I was for a while.
And Nantucket is kind of north coast, so you're quad coastal.
But I really did create an incredible clientele nationwide. The movie stars and the Broadway stars really liked the service of having me bring it to their doorstep, and in this case to their stage door, and it was a very convenient way to shop, and they knew that they would get things from me that were one of a kind and that they wouldn't see on anyone else.
Well, I did that over Christmas. I got one of those one-of-a-kind beak masks with a bulldog on it. And I didn't go to Yale, but the bulldog was so cute, and it's the only one of its kind in existence.
It's true. I'm known for my one-of-a-kind pieces of wearable art, and with the pandemic, I felt that if I was going to sell masks, I had to have something very special and unique. And the artists that created these masks did a lot of research and realized that the beak, which was used back in the days of the Black Plague and also in the days of the Venetian society, it made it easier to breathe.
Absolutely.
And with us people that wear glasses, it absolutely has an additional benefit of not fogging up your glasses. I'm very grateful for this design, and they are fun to wear.
Well, I went over to your pad. It's not just your abode, but it is a showroom of all of your amazing creations, and you showed me all this cool stuff. I saw something on the wall to do with Michael Feinstein.
Well, that's interesting. I met Michael when he was at a little piano bar in West Hollywood when I was living in LA, and he actually was taking over for a friend of mine on Monday nights, and started to chat with Michael, and we just bonded. And we became very close friends, and I used to pick him up after he would be done working his day job, which was to organize the archives of Ira Gershwin.
I remember that. He was very big into that.
Yeah.
Still is, yeah.
And so I would go pick him up, and I got the pleasure of meeting Ira Gershwin, and I also ended up meeting quite a few other composers that were still alive in those days. And
Oscar Levant?
I did. I met him and June. I had the pleasure of visiting with Ira's next door neighbor quite often with Michael, which was Rosie Clooney.
Oh,
and
God.
Rosie became a very good client of mine and ended up loving my not only wearables, but I had really cute gift items, and she would do all her Christmas shopping for her kids from me and her grandkids. So wonderful.
Well, of course, she had a challenge with her figure in later years, I'm sure. So some of your creations fit her well, and she performed with them, I would imagine.
At the Rainbow Room, at Rainbow and Stars. I would be so proud. And so Michael was actually, I was turning 29, and he said, "What would you like for your birthday?" And I said, "I would like you to play piano at my apartment." And at that time, I was living in LA. And he said, "That would be great, but you need to rent a piano." And I did. There was only 16 people for sit-down dinner, and one of them was a family friend of mine who at that time was starting his own record label called Parnassus. And he was just starting. And he, at the end of the dinner party, went up to Michael and said, "I'd like to sign you as my first act with Parnassus Records. Would you be interested in having a record album of your singing and playing?" And Michael said, "Sure, but why would anybody buy my album?" And my friend Herb Eisman said, "Let me worry about that." And Michael produced 3 record albums that I have all framed in my apartment. His first one was pure Gershwin, and he actually put me and my first husband, Ira Roseman, in the dedication line along with his parents and Rosie Clooney and Liza. And the second album was live at the Algonquin, and he signed the first autographed copy of that album cover to me, and I have that framed. And his third record album was a tribute to Irving Berlin. And after that, his career took off. As we all know, he became a multi-Grammy award winner. But I was there from the very start.
So you were responsible in part to him getting his first record deal through that birthday party at your apartment.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Well, Bonnie Roseman,
Yep.
it has been so delightful talking to you. Will you come back and have brunch with us on another Sunday?
I would love to.
You've got to have more stories. We've just scratched the surface. We can get you on once a week with Bonnie's Story of the Week. Okay, so we're going to go to break, and we'll listen to a track from that very first album that Michael Feinstein recorded. Here it is from 1987, Pure Gershwin. And you were responsible for introducing Michael to Herb Eisman, who was just starting Parnassus Records. And as they say, the rest is history. And when we come back, we'll hear from Bing Crosby himself. And then my special guest, Catherine Crosby, will join us on the new Sunday Legends Brunch. Brought to you by the Schumacher Automotive Group and Dixie Vodka. Their Dixie Black Pepper is great for Bloody Marys. It was voted best flavored vodka 2 years in a row. It's all coming up right here on Legends 100.3, where legendary music lives.